A water rescue training session turns into much more. A local media company is mourning the loss of one of their own.
A royal salute for America's president. I'm Ian Lee with Queen Elizabeth's first meeting with President Biden.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
A Columbus man is dead following a crash in Parsons. This is KOAM News at 10. I'm Chris Warner. The crash occurred just before 5 this evening at the intersection of 16th Street and Corning Avenue. A car driven by a girl from Mountain Valley collided with a motorcycle driven by 52-year-old Philip Moore of Columbus. Moore's motorcycle turned on its side following the crash. Moore was killed in that crash. The driver and 2 passengers of the other car were not injured. Water rescue training just outside of Joplin taking a surprising turn. KOAM's Bronte Sorotsky was at the training session along Shoal Creek and joins us live in our studio with more on what happened. Bronte.
What started as just a typical day of training on water rescues turned into those skills being put to use right away. It just keeps getting hotter here in the 4 states, meaning more people will be heading to the water to cool off. That means it's crucial to know what to do should anything take a turn for the worst.
It's very important because this river back behind me looks really friendly right now, yet it is very powerful and is persistent. And with strainers and such that are in our rivers, it's just very important to know what to look for and avoid the problems.
On Sunday, Arkansas Outdoor Outfitters hosted a river safety course in Joplin to give people hands-on experiences performing water rescue and safety techniques.
I'm teaching swimming techniques to be able to get out of the water, wading techniques to reach or go out and wade across to help somebody else. I'm also teaching rope throwing techniques and techniques of getting people into the banks with the throw rope.
These techniques ended up saving a life. During an activity where course participants simulated a rescue by throwing ropes and bringing each other to shore, a woman floated by in distress.
We were just having a training exercise of throwing ropes to a survivor going downriver. There was a girl coming downriver, and she had a life vest on, but I could see in her face that she was having trouble. So I said, "Rope, do you need a rope?" And she said yes, and so I threw a rope to her.
Kyle Murdoch, a participant in the course, says once he got a good look of the girl, it was clear she needed help.
The girl coming down, she had concern in her face, so I knew she needed help.
This experience only solidified the importance of water safety training like this.
It feels pretty good. I mean, without that training, I don't think I would have known how to, throw the rope and, get her in safely. Yeah, you never know what you can expect. That's why it takes practice and, practice your skills and be ready.
It's important to remember for anyone heading to the water anytime soon to look out for strainers in creeks or rivers such as trees. Experts also advise to check the water levels and temperatures before you head out.
Certainly great advice, and how wild is it that they were training on water rescues and then the opportunity to put those skills to use came right up.
I know. Well, it's clear that the training worked and they were able to get that person to shore. All
right, Bronte, thank you so much. Turning to weather. A beautiful day to be out on the water. Nick Kelly joining us.
Yeah, and even if you weren't in the water or any of the pools, creeks, or streams, Chris, it was less humid today. A much better way to wrap up the weekend. Despite highs almost pushing 90 degrees, it just felt a lot better compared to how we started the weekend out, especially with that big complex of thunderstorms that rolled through on Friday. Nothing out there right now, partly cloudy to mostly clear skies. That's all we're going to see as we go through the course of the overnight. The bigger picture, though, shows our main upper level ridge. Even though it's shifting back into the desert southwest, it's having an impact on our weather, keeping us quiet, mild for the rest of the overnight, but it's going to get back to work to warming things up again tomorrow. Right now, though, we're in the lower to middle 70s across the board. I think with dry air in place, we'll actually dip back into the lower 60s. Enjoy that morning with lows in the 60s, because once we hit noon, we're at 87, then we're back in the lower 90s all across the board for tomorrow, Chris. And we'll see if this is heat that can stick around for the rest of the week ahead of us. We'll break down the forecast for you here in a bit.
All right, Nick, thank you so much. Well, Zimmer Marketing is mourning the loss of market manager Chad Elliott. According to KZRG, Elliott died unexpectedly at his home. Elliott had been part of the Zimmer marketing team for more than 25 years. He spent more than 10 of those years as host of the KZRG Morning News Watch. Elliott was a well-known personality in the area and is being mourned by many in the Joplin community. Elliott leaves behind a wife and daughter. He was 47 years old. The Missouri State Highway Patrol is issuing a warning after a crash involving one of their own. Troop D, which covers southwest Missouri, took to Twitter with these photos of one of their vehicles after it was hit by an intoxicated driver. Officials say the trooper was in the vehicle when it was hit. They're using the incident as a reminder to all to not drive impaired. And according to Troop D, no one was seriously hurt in the crash. President Biden has invited Britain's Queen Elizabeth to the White House after she hosted him and the First Lady at Windsor Castle today. CBS's Ian Lee is in Windsor, England, with more on the president's first foreign trip.
The president dropped in for a cup of tea with the Queen. But first, he received a royal salute at Windsor Castle. Queen Elizabeth greeted Mr. Biden and the First Lady. The president continued the long tradition of inspecting the Queen's troops. Outside the castle, the visit was the talk of Windsor.
And with President Biden coming in today to Windsor Castle, I'm very, very hopeful.
The Asales family from Florida says the meeting makes them proud to be Americans.
To have this new start because there's so much went wrong over the past 4 years.
Mr. Biden is the 13th U.S. president to meet the Queen during her nearly 70 years on the throne. In 1957, Dwight D. Eisenhower hosted the Queen on her first state visit to the U.S. She rode horses with Ronald Reagan in 1982, and more recently met Presidents Obama and Trump. President Biden says the Queen reminds him of his mother.
In terms of the look of her and just the generosity.
Tea with the Queen capped off what the president called a productive G7 summit.
Everyone at the table understood and understands both the seriousness and the challenges that we are up against.
Leaders pledged more than 1 billion COVID vaccines to nations in need and a tougher stance on climate change. The president's next stop is Brussels, where he'll meet again with world leaders at the NATO summit. Ian Lee, CBS News, Windsor, England.
President Biden's European trip will end with a much-anticipated meeting in Switzerland with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday. And we take this time now to honor one of our many four-state heroes. Sergeant Brian Welch served with the Marines in 2003, where he received a number of medals. His hometown, Columbus. And we are proud to recognize Sergeant Brian Welch, tonight's four-state hero. And remember, to learn more about other heroes or nominate one of your own, just head over to our website at KOAMNewsNow.com. And that's a look at our top stories and a quick check of the forecast on the KOAM News at 10. Still ahead, a statewide assessment in Kansas trying to tackle a problem amplified by the pandemic. Kansas leaders are working on a blueprint of ideas to address the state's decades-long housing issues, a problem that has only gotten worse during the pandemic. The state has a housing agency that's asking for you to provide public input. Sean Loging talks with them about the statewide housing needs assessment, a study that they say is long overdue.
What COVID has done is made a problem a crisis in our state.
The problem with housing in Kansas is a topic Ryan Vincent hears a lot about.
Up until now, we've had a lot of anecdotal data.
But the executive director of the Kansas Housing Resources Corporation says it's been a long time since it's been fully studied.
It's absolutely critical for both my office as the state's housing agency, as well as for our state, for our policymakers, for our communities, to have accurate data.
Ryan says this is the first time in about 30 years that Kansas has completed a housing needs assessment. So not only will it help them to update the data that they're currently going off of, it will help them to see what else has changed.
Identifies what those needs are, that gives qualitative and quantitative data that we can then use at our office to better allocate existing resources.
These include the recent pandemic-related rental assistance, homeless services, and funding for multifamily housing developments. For the assessment, Kansas Housing is working with the state's Office of Rural Prosperity. Ryan says while the final report will encompass the entire state, Especially in rural areas, quality affordable housing is critical for economic development and previously underserved by funding and resources.
Some of that is just the challenges of developing and rehabbing and keeping aging housing stock in rural communities.
The housing needs assessment is a year-long process nearing the halfway point. Ryan says they've held about 100 community meetings and are gathering the stories of Kansas homeowners and renters with an online survey.
So far, we've got over 2,000 people that have taken the online survey, which is wonderful, but we know that we've got a lot more voices, a lot more stories in our state to tell.
Well, an FDA memo that surfaced Friday outlines how an estimated 75 million doses of the J&J vaccine were rendered unusable. Inspectors at the Emergent Biosolutions facility cited crowded manufacturing areas, inadequate quality assurance, and lab control problems. In February, the FDA rejected an estimated 60 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson single-dose vaccine after a review of the Baltimore facility. Then in March, the New York Times reported that another 15 million vaccine doses were ruined by quality control issues identified by J&J. As of last week, the FDA has now approved 10 million doses of the single-dose vaccine from the facility as being safe to use. Going forward, J&J must continue to share all relevant manufacturing information with regulators from both the U.S. and countries where the vaccine may be used. We had another dry one across the area. Is there more rain or more heat in our future? Nick Kelly has the answer right after this.
At least we ended the weekend on a much better note compared to the big complex of storms we had to deal with back on Friday. Behind that, it did bring a little bit of a drop in the humidity. So even though temperatures pushed into the upper 80s to near 90 this afternoon, the lower humidity made these partly to mostly sunny skies from Indigo Sky outside of Seneca, Missouri, and all across the area more enjoyable if you had any outdoor plans before the weekend wrapped up today. But again, near 90 yesterday. Dropped back into the upper 60s this morning. Maybe a hair cooler with Joplin Regional topping out in the upper 80s, but everybody had quite a warm day, but at least we're still looking okay. From 7th and Range Line right now from the east side of Joplin. 73, a calm northeast breeze, and the dew point's trying to climb back up into the mid 60s, but it's a lot better than when we had dew points back in the 70s just a couple of nights ago. That certainly made things feel sticky around here. Everybody had to make do with upper 80s to near 90 for afternoon highs today. Then we saw everybody drop back quite a bit now. We're at 73 in Lamar, Carthage 75 in the Neosho, already a few spots near 70, in fact 69 in Parsons. So we're going to continue to drop temperatures back eventually, I think, into the lower 60s before we waste no time warming right back up for tomorrow. I don't have anything to show you around here on the Skywatch Storm Tracker. Maybe a scattered patchwork of storms from Nebraska down to Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, and southern parts of the Appalachian Mountain Range. All of those areas of storms fired up along stationary cold fronts parked to our north and to our south. But overall, the main flow of the jet stream is pushing these storms away from us, so we're not have to worry about any storms coming our way tonight. But as long as this upper level ridge is still in play, it's going to keep us quiet for the next day or so. But it's also going to work with the dry air in place and quiet skies throughout the night and into tomorrow to really get to work heating things up once again. We'll drop back into the lower 60s in the morning, but with all this dry air in place, doesn't take much to warm things up. In fact, we'll be in the upper 80s by lunchtime and then pushing into the lower 90s. I think we'll keep things quiet overall, though, with partly to mostly sunny skies in place. 62 in the morning, 87 by noon, highs around 92, with generally an east, occasionally a northeast breeze at about 5 miles per hour. We'll keep skies mostly clear Monday night going into Tuesday morning. A little bit milder, but still okay with lows in the upper 60s. But then we'll go back into the lower 90s again on Tuesday, but with a little more moisture, maybe a slim chance for a random shower or storm. I think most of us are dry on Tuesday as long as it's still controlled by this upper level ridge. But as long as there's a chance for a couple waves to come at us, can't rule out a stray storm on Tuesday or even Wednesday. But once we hit the end of the week, as that ridge gets shunted back to the west, this upper low coming near the Great Lakes is going to try and push a front our way to give us not only a better shot for scattered storms Friday, Saturday, and Father's Day, hopefully highs back in the upper 80s, especially by Father's Day. But From tomorrow through Friday, Chris, it's going to be kind of hot and maybe a bit humid with highs staying in the lower 90s.
Yeah, I did notice this morning the humidity was down quite a bit. It was it was hot, but it was an enjoyable hot.
I know, it's amazing just dropping that humidity down a bit. It makes a world of difference.
All right, Nick, thank you so much. The Outlaws looking to bounce back against Peak Prospects today.
Yep, another shot against them today after falling 5-3 on Saturday, so we'll have the details on that game coming up. Plus, the Sarcoxy archery team comes away from the World Championships with some hardware. That and more next. This is the Toyota Sunday Night Sports Feed. The 52nd annual Briarbrook Invitational Golf Tournament finished up today. 110 players came out to compete over the weekend. Jordan Burks is this year's winner. He's been playing in Briarbrook Invitational for the past 14 years since he was in high school at Carl Junction. Burks shot 13 under for the tournament, including a 67 in the final round today. He won by 5 shots with a total score of 203. The Outlaws finish off their series against the Peak Prospects this afternoon. Joplin was handed their 3rd loss of the season by Des Moines on Saturday. A chance to split the series here, the Outlaws get it done, powering past the Peak Prospects with a 7-run 5th inning to win 16-4. Joplin's road trip continues as they move on to Clarinda for a pair of games to start the week. In the majors, the Royals are 10 games back in the Central Division after falling in a definitive 11-2 loss to the A's on Saturday. Tonight is the series finale, game tied at 1. Elvis Andrus out to deep center for an RBI double to put the A's on top. In the 3rd, Andrew Benintendi gets his 8th homer of the year here. Royals within 1, but Matt Olson solo shot to right, his 2nd home run of the night. Kansas City falls 6-3, heading home from a 7-game California road trip with just 1 win. The Cardinals also finishing up a series tonight, looking to avoid the sweep in Chicago. Cubs up 1-0 in the 3rd. Anthony Rizzo gets it through the middle. RBI single doubles Chicago's lead. Next inning, Nolan Arenado snags the grounder, and look at this throw, Patrick Wisdom out at first. Then it's the Cubs with a great defensive play. Sergio Alcantara with a sliding grab on Arenado's hit. The 2-0 score will stand. Chicago sweeps St. Louis at home. The Sarcoxy archery team traveled to Myrtle Beach for the World Archery Championships and returned as the high school 3D world champions. Individually, Alyssa Willis places 1st. She is the female high school 3D world champion and the top overall 3D individual. Also on the podium representing Sarcoxy is Emma Harper. She places 5th on the women's side. For the men, James Philbeck also places 5th. In the World Bullseye Championship, Sarcoxy earns a 4th place finish. And that's a look at sports. We'll be back with more news after this.
What's your order?
As more people return to air travel, unruly passengers are increasingly becoming a problem on flights. Most recently on Friday, when an off-duty Delta Airlines flight attendant apparently commandeered the intercom on a packed Atlanta-bound flight. That led to a scuffle that forced the plane to divert and land in Oklahoma City. Polo Sandoval reports.
It's shaping up to be a rough summer in the skies. A Friday Atlanta-bound Delta Airlines flight became the latest to be interrupted by an unruly passenger. That problem passenger was one of the airline's own flight attendants, flying off-duty at the time, according to a Delta spokesman. Witnesses on board reported he commandeered the aircraft's intercom and told them to prepare to use their oxygen masks, triggering a clash between him, the crew, and some of his fellow passengers. One witness told CNN he feared the worst during the very tense encounter.
People behind me were saying, well, that's really bad. I mean, that only happens when a plane goes down. I prayed that God would protect my family in case I was gone.
On Thursday night, a separate Delta flight from LA to New York was also diverted after what was described by the airline as a customer issue on board.
Stop this plane.
On June 4th, a third Delta flight, this one from LA to Nashville, was forced to make an emergency landing after a passenger tried breaching the cockpit door, according to authorities. And Delta is not alone. Crews from American and Southwest Airlines have been among those recently subjected to belligerent passengers.
We are going to see you!
And in at least one case, physical abuse from troublesome travelers. In May, the head of the Federal Aviation Administration said he's worried as these kinds of air rage incidents seem to be repeating themselves.
This dangerous behavior can distract, disrupt, and threaten crew members' safety functions. And as a former airline captain, it's extremely concerning to me.
The spokesperson for the agency says that it's received at least 2,900 reports of unruly behavior by passengers this year. 2,200 of them have been related to noncompliance with the federal mandate requiring masks on public transportation, planes included. The spike in bad onboard behavior prompted the FAA to extend a zero-tolerance policy.
Are you serious?
The spokesperson says enforcement action has been started in over 36 cases already. Question now, will it get even more unfriendly in disguise with a busy summer travel season on the horizon?
Got a final check of the forecast next. Well, Pittsburgh firefighters got called out on a special rescue today. Captain Taylor Cern, along with firefighters Chris Barrows and Dakota Burton, were able to help rescue a kitten from a storm drain. For Burton, this was his third full shift on duty. The kitten will be taken to the SEK Humane Society tomorrow morning since no one claimed ownership at the time of the rescue. Certainly a cute little kitten down there, and not a good day for kittens to be stuck in storm drains. It was still pretty warm.
Yeah, and we're just going to trend a little bit warmer tomorrow with highs near 92. I think we're dry for tomorrow, though. Can't rule out a random storm or two Tuesday and Wednesday, but we'll hold off on any better chances and hopefully cooler temperatures until the weekend.
All right, Nick, Danny, thank you. That's our time for now. Next news time is 5 a.m. with the KOAM Morning News. And we're always online and available with the KOAM News Now app. Thanks for making us part of your night.